Greetings, Robin Hood Black here, coming to you again from my Artsy Letters studio, where for Poetry Month, I'm continuing my little series of poetry and art, in which I pick a word each Poetry Friday and share a poem that highlights that word and some piece of art that I make, mixed media, something or other, and I let you tag along for that process. My word this week is the word story. And that came to me because I received a gift of a poem from our wonderful Tabitha Yates. And her poem that she sent to me is called 175 Million Chapters. Let me see if the graphic will show up if I hold it up. 175 million chapters. Our brains love a story, like a bad swimmer loves air, breathing, and then in gulps, like a good swimmer loves air, pulling in enough to keep going. Like a pteranodon loved air, the only way to live that it knew. We understand dinosaurs as a novella, roars and stomps and over with a bang. But they woke and wandered, fought and slept for so long that our story minds come to a sputtering stop, watching their lives stretch before us. How did some dinosaurs get by during 1,000,000 years of rain? 1,000 generations passing, never seeing the sun. How did others survive air that burned, fire in front and behind and beside, alone, alone, alone? Their absence leads us to forget their victories, the chapters of survival, times when someone woke surrounded by bones and ash, but the map still had them on it, a persistent pinpoint. You are here. And thanks for tagging along as we get ready to create something. Now, to include the word story or stories in whatever collage I make, decided I'd make a collage. I've looked through old books and some of my old periodicals and that kind of thing, which of course I can get lost for hours in doing. So sometimes I have to just say, find what you find. There's a nice word stories here in this collection of stories by de Balzac. Right there is the word stories. This book has deliciously dark illustrations by Gustave Doré, which I love. I was looking for copyright and that sort of things, but it is old. Another option could be, well, you can tell how old this book is. It's very, very old. I could also use, even though the word stories is smaller and it's just story, this is a collection of old periodicals called The Mentor. So there's the word story there. Can you see it? See that? But then I also like to look. A lot of times there will be a title heading on the following pages of something like this. And so I have a lot of different story, the authentic thing. In addition to just finding the word that I'm looking for, I thought for this particular piece, I might raid my stash of day books. I love the old day books, like diaries. Here is one from 100 years ago, from 1926. And they're just fascinating to me, and they're so personal. And back then, a lot of times there would just be these little, the date and just a few little lines for somebody to put what they did that day. So I've kind of challenged myself this year to do a little more of that instead of saying, okay, I'm going to write some grandiose thing in a journal every day. I've been trying to just put highlights. I haven't hit it every day, but I'm working on it. And then whatever I have going on, so-and-so is visiting, or I'm going such and such, or whatever that day. Now, the gentleman who had this one, his name was George J. You got me. Polymer, I believe, or something like that. He lived on Harvard Avenue, 270, but I don't even see a city or state. Old telephone number reference. He's got his wife's name here, and then these, shoe size and clothing size, height and weight, things like that. Those are amazing. Now, this gentleman had a rough start to spring. I've been kind of peeking on this since it was 100 years ago. Had been sick for quite a while in March and also into April. And on April 8th, which is the day that I'm actually recording this, he said he was sick, set up a little. The next day, on Friday, the 9th, he was sick, went out a half an hour. And then on Saturday, the 10th, he went to the shop right down there. And then he was a little bit active the next week. So I think our George was feeling a little better here. I'm thinking of taking a page out of this to add to this. Along with the word story, my mind has been thinking about steps this week. You know that I love haiku, or some of you do. And a haiku poem, and even other kinds of poems, sometimes can just crystallize one moment. And I love that about them. A story takes some steps. It has to have some kind of a movement. So to me, that's kind of the difference between a story, a narrative, and some kinds of poetry that might just capture a specific moment and feeling in time. I recently popped into one of my favorite antique shops. It is called The Garage on 25 in Hendersonville, North Carolina. And a few booths there always have some wonderful vintage things to choose from. One has some old music. And I picked up this piece. This is from 1946. Not so much for the front, but I fell in love with this graphic on the back. These are, I guess, black piano keys. I think they're wonderful. But I loved the layering here. You know, it kind of looks like a silk screen. And to me, they kind of look like steps. And then when I was considering Tabitha's wonderful poem, I was thinking about dinosaur tracks. So I kind of printed off an image of what these might look like. This is an Adobe image, but you know, here's some dinosaur tracks. So I've been thinking about steps as well. And then, wouldn't you know it, today, as I'm filming this, it is Wednesday. And my daughter and her family were here, my daughter and her husband and their wonderful son, who is about to turn 4, and their beautiful baby girl, who is 15 months. And she took her very first steps here at our house today, which was just marvelous. So I've really been thinking about steps today in light of that wonderful family celebration. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and for your patience as I'm trying to figure out how to make these. I wanted to mention one more thing. I kind of accidentally stumbled upon a show the other day on public TV. It was from back in 2023, if you're familiar with the show Nova. This one was season 50, episode 9, called Perception Deception. I got sucked in because the part that I saw, they were talking about visual perception. Do you remember the dress, the big controversy of the internet dress? But there was a fascinating discussion with experts about how our eyes work and how our brain gives cues to our eyes and back to our brain. So we perceive things differently sometimes from the person next to us. Also in that episode, a little bit later on, was a discussion about memory and about the stories that we walk around with and carry. And that was fascinating as well. It was toward the end. I learned a word, reconsolidation, which is what happens when you access a memory and you take it out and observe it, perceive it. When you put it back, your brain actually has to make new connections, new synapses, which I just thought was absolutely fascinating. So really, every time you keep reliving a memory, things are shifting around a little bit, and you might have a little extra when you put it back that wasn't actually there when the event occurred. It's fascinating to me. The stories are, and my husband, who's a psychiatrist, deals with people and their memories and stories all the time. So of course he knew all this. But anyway, if you're interested in that episode, it's still on the PBS website. I think it expires though in May of this year, because I guess it was up for 3 years. So you might want to look that up. I'll have a link. And I appreciate your time today, and I hope that your story continues to unfold in the ways that delight you. Thanks for spending time with me.